Hello, you're watching Stretford Paddock. We are back for the news. We just had a small technical difficulty there, but hopefully all things are sorted now. We are here, of course, for the news that Christian Eriksen's future has been decided. This comes off the back of yesterday's quote from Jose Mourinho, saying that he knows Christian Eriksen's future, which of course indicates that there have been changes, there have been decisions that have been made and finalised in terms of Christian Eriksen. Of course, this comes because he has been linked with a host of clubs, including Manchester United, in a position that we know that Ole Gunnar Solskjaer is looking to fill, that sort of number 10, that attacking midfielder position, something that United are clearly lacking, and something that Solskjaer has, I think, not necessarily publicly, but certainly he seems to have. There have been briefings in the past that suggest United are looking for a midfielder, an attacking midfielder, and a striker. So Eriksen has been linked with United a lot over the last few months, over the last few years generally. Ever since he joined Tottenham, there have been rumours of United's interest in him. Of course, Eriksen has only got, I think, till the rest of the season left on his contract, so he will be leaving for a free come, June, if he doesn't sign a new contract, or if he doesn't go in January, which I think, for me, makes me believe that he might well leave in January, because there's nothing Daniel Levy likes less than not getting money for a player and not getting good money for a player. It seems as though the relationship that Eriksen has with Tottenham has broken down. Obviously, people have noted his dip in form over the last sort of year or so, really. If you listen to the Tottenham fans and the word that sort of seems to be going around about the way he's been playing. But he's only 27 years old, so it's not like he's coming to the end of his career. He joined Tottenham, I think, when he was 22 or 23, and has been arguably, outside of Harry Kane, their best player in that time. Mourinho, he seems to do this, doesn't he? He comes into teams and you can almost tell right away he picks the players he likes and he plays those players, and he plays the rest of the players as little as he can around that. And he seems to have picked Dele Alli as his go-to number 10 in his side, which of course doesn't leave much space for Christian Eriksen. Of course, if his attitude's being brought into question as well, Eriksen, that's something that Mourinho doesn't really stand for. As we saw the way he sort of threw Ndombele under the bus yesterday, basically saying that he's not playing but he's not injured, which is sort of thing that only very few managers would do. Usually you would maybe hide that kind of thing or make the player look as good as possible. Mourinho's a little bit more, if you're not doing it my way, you can go. So I think certainly Eriksen's future at Tottenham looks to be in the balance. And again, I think it's the sort of player United should be after. I think it's the sort of player that United are after, whether it is Eriksen specifically or whether it is other players of that mould. He's one of the most proven Premier League attacking midfielders that we've ever seen. Consistently gets 10 goals, 10 assists a season. Is clearly a top-class player when he's on form. Obviously, that form's dropped. He's made 15 appearances for Tottenham this season and recorded just 1 goal and 2 assists, which is nowhere near his usual numbers. But as I've said, he's been on the fringes of that Tottenham side, and a lot of those appearances have either been as a sub or gone on to be subbed later on in the game. So, not many 90 minutes involved in that 15 appearances, but clearly not his best season in terms of a return in creation and in goals scored. But again, it would be a sort of one of the main attractive parts of this transfer is, like I said, he is leaving at the end of the season unless he signs a new contract on a free. So the amount we'd be paying for him in January would probably be between 20 and 30 million. I would say no more than that. We've seen players leave in the last year of their contract. I think it was Thibaut Courtois who left Chelsea for around 25, 30 million, I think. Similar kind of numbers for one of the top players in their position in the world, that when you're coming toward the end of your contract, everyone knows that the player's leaving for a free anyway, so you're only basically paying for sort of 6 months worth of wages and contracts. So that would obviously lead to a cut price for Eriksen. Let me know in the comments whether you think Eriksen would be the right kind of sign for United. Obviously, we've seen Paul Pogba coming back from injury in the last couple of games, which has slightly alleviated that need for a number 10. But then, in the wake of him coming back, we move on to our next story as we see Scott McTominay is injured. He seemed to pull up a little bit against Newcastle yesterday and then carried on and played for the rest of the half. He was then subbed off for Pogba, who started the game on the bench. But then it was then seen last night pictures of him leaving Old Trafford on crutches. which is obviously not a good sign. And then after the game, Ole Solskjaer came out and said that he does seem to have sustained some kind of knee ligament injury, which anytime you hear the word ligaments, it's not good, is it? Who knows how long that'll be out for? That could, depending on the severity of the ligament injuries, depending what ligaments it is, depending whether it's a tear or a twist or a strain or all these different words that who knows what they really mean. It's looking at a few weeks to a few months. And I think, again, it just goes to show the frailties we have in midfield, the frailties we have basically throughout the whole squad. But Scott McTominay going down, that means that Paul Pogba's probably going to have to play in that kind of deeper role. And again, we've got the Andreas or Lingard at 10, which, you know, we saw from the our team news video that we brought to you live yesterday, that not too many people are exactly happy with either of those options at number 10. So I think the squad is certainly crying out for midfielders, both in terms of a number 8 and a more of a holding player, and in terms of a number 10. So could someone like Christian Eriksen be the perfect man to fill that gap? What we've got in the comments, we're saying 50 million for Eriksen. Liam Waterfield saying I'd still pay 30 million. Jordan asking how much you think he'd be. It just depends, doesn't it? I would be surprised if it was. I mean, like I said, he's got 6 months left on his contract, and I would be surprised if it was anything more than 30 million. Really, I think, you know, you're essentially buying 1/5 or 1/6 of sort of a contract, which is not worth much, is it? Players, I don't know. If it was any more than 30 million, I'd be very surprised. Ankit says we need an attacking midfielder. He's 27. Let's buy him. I think that's almost like it's a strange one, really, because that's like the obvious way to look at it. We need a midfielder. He's a midfielder. Let's get him. And it doesn't always work like that. Obviously, not everyone is suited for every team, but to me, he's a proven Premier League midfielder. He's scored tons of goals. He's made tons of assists. And during his peak, maybe not last season, but the season before, he was renowned for his work rate as well. I know that he's seen as more of a bit of a luxury player, obviously, a number 10. He's not going to be doing too much defensively. But everyone in that Tottenham side got up and down, and I think he's one of those who's a real sort of workhorse number 10, even though he's not going to be getting loads of tackles in. His shape and his discipline were always one of the things that he was praised for, which, funnily enough, is one of the things that he's been criticised for in the last few months, that he doesn't work for the team, he doesn't try hard, he looks like he's not bothered, he's sulky, kind of that sort of Mesut Ozil situation almost. But hopefully Eriksen isn't allowed to kind of fester and sit there for 2 or 3 years on a run of bad form like Ozil has been. Hopefully, you know what, for his sake, hopefully he does leave Tottenham either in January or at the end of the season. Harris saying his injury could be part of Ole's mind games. It could be shorter than we think. That's talking about Scott McTominay's knee ligament injury. I don't think that Ole would be bandying around terms like knee ligament injury as mind games. I mean, we've seen stranger things happen, but I reckon that this is probably quite serious, and that we should maybe be not. I wouldn't say too worried. Obviously, hopefully we can replace him and we can do that. But he's probably been our standout midfielder this season, or for me, definitely our best midfielder, with the absence of Pogba and alongside Fred. I think he's got the best out of Fred rather than the other way around. I think McTominay's been our best midfielder. It's going to be a difficult one to replace him. Obviously, we've got the January transfer window opening up, and we, like I said before, it's been reported in the Athletic, it's been reported in the Telegraph, and a lot of other publications that Solskjaer is interested in signing multiple midfielders, not just one midfielder, but 2 or 3, and then a striker as well. So I think Solskjaer will be extra keen and even sort of more eager to make those signings in January than he was before. Eriksen's branding might get in the way. I'm not quite sure about that one. If you can give me a bit more information on that, that'd be good to know. But I can't remember the last time a transfer didn't happen because of someone's branding. But we'll have to see about that, obviously. We need a central midfielder in January after Scott. Without him, our midfield is empty. Yeah, we do struggle. I think we've got Matic, obviously, as cover there. But we've seen that Solskjaer's reluctance to play Matic. It seems like his legs aren't quite there anymore. We've obviously got Pogba coming back, but it's a tough run of games. We've got another game on the 28th and then another game on New Year's Day. So I think, not on the 20th, whenever it is, we've got the Burnley game and then we've got the Arsenal game all in quick succession. I can't imagine Paul Pogba playing 90 minutes in both of those games, having been out for so long. So we are going to have to see some rotation in there, assuming Scott isn't fit to play. I think Eriksen would be a safe option, but will we be removing the need for someone like Maddison in the summer? Well, I think it would be removing the need for Maddison in the summer. Maddison's come in for a lot of criticism in his last few games. Obviously, Leicester have been playing difficult teams. They played they played City, and then they played Liverpool. Not necessarily back to back, but both within the space of about 10 days. And Maddison and the rest of Leicester team was sort of criticised for their performances or lack of performances in both of those games. Leicester, of course, losing 4-0 to Liverpool yesterday. And I don't think Maddison hardly had a touch, certainly in the time that we saw. He's with Nike. I don't think that would be an issue. I think United have got plenty of players who are with Nike, and I don't think just because our kits are sponsored by Adidas that we'd struggle to sign someone who is sponsored by Nike. We're going to miss McSauce, but if Pogba is fully fit, then I think we should be okay against Burnley. Again, it's back to that point of, can Pogba play 90 minutes against Burnley and then 90 minutes against Arsenal 3 days later? It's going to be a tricky one. It's going to be tough. We can only find out by seeing, I suppose. And hopefully we'll get a further update on McTominay's injury on Solskjaer's press conference before that Burnley game. Eriksen has 1 goal and 2 assists. This is Alexis all over again. There is that chance that this could be that kind of Alexis situation. I'd say the key differences for me is Alexis had a string of sort of injuries that had been niggling him throughout his career, ankle injuries and muscular injuries that he always seemed to be overcoming at Arsenal, and when he was playing for Chile, and he'd played a hell of a lot of games in and not a very long career, and he was also 30, so 3 years older than Eriksen, or 29 maybe, but turning 30, and he'd played basically 60 games a year for about 10 years in a row and not had a summer off in about 5 years, which I think it just kills your legs. It kills a player's legs. I think Eriksen has been afforded more time off, and he's played less games, and he's been less injury prone in his career than Sanchez was, which are all kind of more physical factors, without knowing exactly the kind of mental and situational factors that led Sanchez to be let's not say mistake, but the unfortunate transfer that it became. Also, the money that Sanchez was given immediately put him in a strange position in the squad, where you could imagine tensions in the squad where they could sort of bubble up quite easily. The fact that he's on 400 grand a week when everyone else is on much less than that, I think it all adds to a potential boiling pot of difficulty for that Sanchez transfer. Something I think we could probably avoid with Eriksen, because I bet he's on a lot less than a lot of our big stars, since Tottenham are notoriously quite stingy with their wages. But yeah, that's going to be it for now. I think one last thing, Mikura Blonde saying Eriksen turns 28 in February. So, he's a lot younger than Sanchez was. And 28 is a good age for the sort of final pieces of a team. I think maybe we're a year away from that, but he would be turning 29 or, coming into his prime now. So I think he could be the kind of signing that Solskjaer's looking for. Thank you very much for joining me. We'll be keeping track on this transfer and all the other transfers as we enter the transfer window, obviously opening on the 1st of January. We're going to bring you all the updates and preview, which is coming later for the Burnley game. We'll have a watch along for all that stuff as well, as we always do. So thank you very much for joining me, and we'll see you next time.